welcome to the deep dive. Ready to explore some fascinating sources you sent our way.
Always up for a good deep dive. Let's hear it.
So today, we're diving into a world that might surprise you, predictions about the aftermath of a recent election.
Okay. Interesting.
But here's the twist.
I'm intrigued. Go on.
These predictions are seen through the lens of tarot and pendulum readings.
Whoa. Okay, that's definitely not your typical election analysis.
Right. It might sound a little unconventional, but stick with us. You often find incredible insights when you explore diverse perspectives.
I'm all about expanding perspectives. So tell me more about the source material for this deep dive.
Our primary source is a YouTube channel called Healing Truth Tarot. We've got a stack of videos and your own notes to go through.
Healing Truth Tarot. Okay, I'm curious. What's the general vibe of this channel?
Well, the host Shelley uses tarot to interpret the motivations and potential futures of key players and then backs that up with a pendulum for those yes or no questions about specific events. It's like a blend of symbolic storytelling and intuitive divination.
That's a really interesting combination of methods. What's intriguing here is the way these methods, while not scientifically proven, tap into something beyond the surface. They offer a way to understand the collective anxieties, hopes, and underlying narratives that surround major events like elections. It's a glimpse into how people are processing these events on an emotional and intuitive level.
Exactly. And speaking of unknowns, one of the biggest questions surrounding this election was the possibility of fraud. Shelley dives right into that, using the pendulum to confirm widespread fraud and emphasizing that evidence exists to expose it all. She calls it the steal.
The steel, that's a powerful image. It suggests something solid, unyielding, something that can't be easily dismissed. This taps into a very real sense of distrust and uncertainty that many people felt surrounding the election process. Whether or not one believes in the literal existence of this steel, it represents a belief that truth will ultimately be revealed.
And Shelley gets even more specific, predicting that this information will come out publicly within a very specific time frame, December 3rd to 8th.
Wow, so she's putting a date on it. That's interesting. This level of specificity is interesting because it moves beyond general predictions and into the realm of actionable intelligence. It creates a sense of anticipation, a focal point for those who believe in this narrative of hidden truths waiting to be exposed.
Okay, so we've got potential fraud and a predicted revelation. Now let's talk about the players involved, starting with Donald Trump. Shelley's readings don't paint a very rosy picture for him.
Okay, I'm listening. What does she see for Trump?
Well, the consistent prediction is one of downfall facing legal repercussions for the alleged election fraud.
It's almost as if she's tapping into a collective sense of karma, the idea that actions have consequences and those who abuse power will ultimately be held accountable.
And it's not just about legal consequences. Shelley also suggests a decline in his health, specifically mentioning heart issues and rapidly progressing dementia.
That's pretty heavy stuff. What's striking is how these predictions align with pre-existing narratives about Trump's personality and health. The idea of a cognitive decline, while not medically confirmed, had already been circulating in public discourse. It speaks to how these readings, even if symbolic, can amplify existing anxieties and shape public perception.
It's like those anxieties are being channeled through the cards, giving them a tangible form and a potential timeline for manifestation. Shelley goes on to describe Trump as a magician figure, but not in a good way.
Magician. That's an interesting choice of words. What does she mean by that?
She paints him as a figure aware that his time is ending, someone intentionally stirring up chaos for his own benefit.
I see. It certainly is. But it also taps into a very real concern about the erosion of truth and the rise of misinformation. The idea of a leader intentionally creating chaos to maintain power is a chilling one, and it resonates with anxieties about the fragility of democratic institutions.
So we've got Trump, the fallen magician, facing a predicted downfall. Now let's turn to Joe Biden. Shelley's readings paint a very different picture for him.
Oh, tell me more. What does she see for Biden?
Well, there's much more positive and hopeful energy surrounding Biden in these readings. He's consistently portrayed as the rightful winner, the one who will ultimately expose the truth and bring justice to those who perpetrated the fraud.
That's quite a contrast. It's almost as if she's offering reassurance to those who believe in Biden's legitimacy. The readings reinforce the idea that truth and justice will prevail, even if it takes time.
And speaking of heroes, Shelley predicts the even more surprising turn of events: Kamala Harris ultimately becoming president.
Really? Okay, that's unexpected. What does she see for Harris?
She's depicted as a powerful, intuitive figure ready for what Shelley calls the final battle.
Wow. This prediction is particularly interesting because it speaks to a larger cultural shift, the increasing visibility and empowerment of women in leadership roles. It's a projection of hope for those who see Harris as a symbol of progress and change.
It's like she's embodying that archetypal energy of the warrior queen, the one who rises to power in times of crisis and leads with strength and wisdom.
And it also taps into the idea of a generational shift, with a younger, more diverse leadership stepping forward to take the reins. Whether or not one believes in the literal accuracy of this prediction, it reflects a desire for change and a belief in the possibility of a more inclusive and equitable future.
And it's not just Biden and Harris. Shelley brings in a whole cast of characters, each playing a role in this unfolding drama. Mike Pence, for instance, is depicted as turning away from Trump supporting Harris and ultimately cooperating with authorities.
Oh, wow. That's a pretty significant shift from his previous association with Trump. It suggests a potential fracturing within the Republican Party, with those who uphold traditional values aligning with the Democrats.
And then we have Elon Musk, who Shelley calls the space cadet. He's painted in a much more negative light, described as delusional and facing financial woes.
That's an interesting one. It's a pretty harsh assessment of someone who's often seen as a visionary and innovator. Why do you think she takes such a negative view of him?
It's interesting, isn't it? Perhaps as a commentary on the dangers of unchecked ambition and the potential pitfalls of technological advancement without ethical considerations.
Yeah, I can see that. It's like a warning against hubris, the idea that even those who seem to have it all can fall from grace if they lose touch with reality and basic human values.
And then we have a series of even more intriguing predictions. J.D. Vance moving towards the light, RFK Jr. potentially fleeing the country, and even the possibility of NATO getting involved in response to Russia's alleged role in the election fraud.
Whoa, okay, hold on. That escalated quickly. We're going from individual fates to global implications in a matter of minutes. It's a reminder that these seemingly personal readings are also tapping into larger geopolitical anxieties. The idea of foreign interference in elections is a very real concern, and Shelley's predictions seem to be amplifying those fears.
It's like she's weaving together personal narratives with a larger tapestry of global events, creating a sense of interconnectedness and a heightened sense of urgency. But before we get too deep into those forces, I think it's time for a quick pause.
Sounds good. Let's take a break and come back to unpack all of this.
When we come back, we'll explore Shelley's personal experiences with spiritual warfare, the concept of collective awakening, and how all of this might relate to your own life.
I'm ready for part 2.
Stick with us.
Okay, so we're back and ready to dive deeper into this world of tarot and politics.
We left off talking about these global implications, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's another layer to Shelley's readings that we haven't even touched on yet.
Oh.
Right. Okay, lay it on me.
Well, she connects her own experiences to this intense energy surrounding the election. She talks about seeing dark shadows, feeling a sense of surrealness, like things are just off.
That's interesting. It's fascinating how she links these personal, even unsettling experiences to a larger collective phenomenon. This resonates with the idea that we're all energetically connected, that individual experiences can reflect broader shifts in consciousness.
And she doesn't think these are just isolated incidents either. She suggests it's all part of a bigger spiritual battle playing out.
Oh, wow. Spiritual bubble.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued now. But let's play devil's advocate for a second. Couldn't these feelings simply be anxiety? Just amplified by a stressful election and all the uncertainty at the time?
Absolutely. That's a valid point. Lots of people were feeling on edge back then. It was a really intense period.
Right. But here's the thing. Shelley reframes these experiences as a call to action, not a reason to despair.
Okay. So instead of doom and gloom, it's more like we're all in this together and we have the power to change things.
Exactly. She encourages her viewers to share similar occurrences, not to wallow in fear, but to recognize a shared awakening that's happening.
That's a powerful message. It ties back to the concept of collective energy we discussed earlier. If negative actions and intentions can impact the world, then so can positive ones.
It's almost like a spiritual self-help guide layered onto these political predictions.
Right. Focus on your own energy, and you contribute to a better outcome for everyone. It's a very empowering message.
And reflects a broader cultural trend, too.
Yeah.
Right? This growing interest in mindfulness energy work and finding meaning beyond traditional systems.
Absolutely. People are searching for ways to connect with something larger than themselves, and these practices offer a framework for doing just that.
Speaking of frameworks, we should circle back to that specific timeline. Shelley lays out election fraud revelations in December, potential delays in inauguration, even a special election in March or April. It's a lot to process.
It's a wild ride for sure. What stands out to you about this timeline? Does it feel plausible or more like a what-if scenario?
It's hard to say. Honestly, it has a bit of a movie plot feel to it, full of twists and turns you wouldn't expect. But I can see how in a time of such heightened anxiety and political polarization, these types of predictions can be both appealing and concerning.
That's a key point. These predictions, even if offered with good intentions, can have unintended consequences. They can inspire hope and action for some, but also disillusionment and further distrust in official narratives for others if those predictions don't come to pass.
So where does this leave our listener who brought us these sources in the first place? They've given us a fascinating mix of predictions, spiritual concepts, strong opinions. What do we do with all of this?
That's the beauty of the deep dive, isn't it? We've explored the material, unpacked the key themes, but ultimately it's up to the listener to decide how to integrate this knowledge into their own understanding of the world.
Exactly. They might find themselves questioning their own assumptions, seeking out additional perspectives, or even exploring some of these spiritual practices themselves. Who knows what rabbit holes this deep dive might lead them down?
And that's the point. We're not here to provide definitive answers, but to spark curiosity, encourage critical thinking, and empower our listeners to continue their own explorations.
Before we move on from this particular exploration, though, I'm drawn to how Shelley analyzes individual players through the lens of tarot. Her reading for Mike Pence, for instance, is full of unexpected details.
Yes. The way she uses specific cards to illuminate Pence's motivations and potential actions adds another dimension to this whole deep dive. It's as if she's trying to understand not just what might happen, but why these individuals might act in certain ways.
And she does this for Biden, Harris, and of course Trump. Each reading offers a glimpse into their inner world as interpreted through the symbolism of the cards. It's like a psychological profile combined with fortune-telling.
It's a blend of intuition, observation, and deep familiarity with the symbolic language of tarot. Whether or not you believe in the predictive accuracy, these readings offer a fascinating lens for understanding how people make sense of this complex and uncertain political landscape.
Let's get back to Pence for a minute. What
Yeah.
specifically stood out to you in his reading?
Well, there's definitely a shift from his earlier association with Trump. Remember, he was initially depicted as going to the light, suggesting a move away from Trump's influence. But then Shelley's pendulum also indicated that he remained just as negative as Trump. It's a curious contradiction.
It's like he's caught between two worlds, trying to reconcile his traditional values with the realities of the political arena he finds himself in.
Exactly, and that tension is mirrored in the specific card she draws. The King of Wands speaks to leadership morality and tradition qualities often associated with Pence. But then we have the Five of Wands, which points to conflict, tension, and rivalry.
So which is it? Is he a staunch traditionalist, or is he caught up in the same power struggles as everyone else?
The readings seem to suggest it's both. He's clinging to his values while navigating a rapidly changing political landscape. And of course, there's that intriguing suggestion that he's ultimately supportive of Harris, which adds another layer of complexity.
Okay, so we have Pence, seemingly in a state of internal conflict, Trump facing a predicted downfall, and Biden and Harris emerging as beacons of hope. What about the other players in this tarot-infused political drama?
Well, Biden's reading is consistently positive. He's portrayed as a strong and capable leader, but also someone deeply affected by the weight of the situation. Shelley describes him as feeling vulnerable, yet grounded and balanced.
It's like he's carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders, but manages to stay focused and determined.
And that resilience is reflected in the cards. The Ace of Pentacles points to new beginnings and grounded energy, while the Ten of Pentacles represents the rewards of hard work and commitment.
So even amid chaos and uncertainty, there's a sense that positive outcomes are possible. Hard work and integrity will ultimately prevail.
Exactly. And that message of hope carries over into Harris's reading as well. She's depicted as a powerful and intuitive leader, ready for the challenges ahead. The High Priestess card, symbolizing wisdom and intuition, is prominent.
It's like she's accessing a deeper understanding of the situation, using her intuition to navigate these turbulent times.
And she's not afraid to stand her ground. The Nine of Swords card, often representing the rest before a final battle, suggests she's preparing for a decisive confrontation.
So we get a sense of impending conflict, but also a strong belief in the ultimate victory of good over evil. It's a classic narrative playing out on the political stage.
And it's one that resonates with Shelley and her viewers. These readings offer a way to make sense of a complex, often frightening reality, providing a framework for hope and action.
It's fascinating how these spiritual tools and concepts are applied to something as concrete and often divisive as politics. It really speaks to the human need for meaning-making, even in the most challenging circumstances.
Absolutely. And it raises questions about the role of intuition belief and alternative ways of knowing in a world that often prioritizes data and objective evidence.
It's a reminder that there are many ways to interpret reality, and each perspective can offer valuable insights.
And sometimes those insights come from unexpected sources, like a YouTube channel devoted to tarot and pendulum readings about the aftermath of a presidential election.
Speaking of unexpected sources, remember that Elon Musk reading, the space cadet, as Shelley calls him, doesn't fare too well.
No, he doesn't. He's portrayed as delusional and out of touch, facing financial struggles and a potential fall from grace. It's quite a contrast to the positive portrayals of Biden and Harris.
Why do you think Shelley takes such a negative view of Musk? Is there something in his actions or personality that aligns with the card she's drawing?
It's difficult to say for sure, but perhaps it's a commentary on the potential dangers of unchecked ambition. His ventures are ambitious, and his statements are sometimes controversial. Maybe they're being interpreted as signs of recklessness. Or maybe there is a sense that his success isn't sustainable, that he's flying too close to the sun.
That space cadet nickname definitely plays into the idea of being detached from reality, pursuing these huge visions without always considering the consequences.
And remember, Shelley's pendulum indicated that he was denied a $65 billion loan, which she connects to his erratic behavior. This adds to the impression that his actions are catching up with him.
It's interesting how these readings, while rooted in spiritual concepts, also offer commentary on real-world events and personalities. It's like a blend of social commentary, psychological analysis, and divination all rolled into one.
And it's a reminder that even those who seem to have it all, wealth, fame, power, are still subject to the same forces of fate and consequence as everyone else.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it? No matter how high you climb, you're still vulnerable to the winds of change.
And those winds can change direction quickly, especially in the world of politics. That's why it's so important to stay grounded, stay connected to your values, and be open to unexpected possibilities.
Wise words. Speaking of unexpected possibilities, let's turn our attention to a few other intriguing figures that pop up in Shelley's readings.
I'm particularly curious about J.D. Vance. Initially, he was depicted as going to the light, breaking away from Trump's influence. But then Shelley's pendulum also indicated that he remained just as negative as Trump. It's a confusing contradiction.
It does seem like he's caught in a tug of war, maybe, between his conscience and his political ambitions.
And then there's the mention of RFK Jr. potentially fleeing the country due to alleged involvement in the election fraud. That's a serious claim, one that would have significant consequences if true.
It's a good reminder that these readings, while intriguing, should be taken with a grain of salt. We're dealing with interpretations, not confirmed facts.
Exactly. It's important to consider the potential impact of these claims, especially when they aren't backed up by concrete evidence.
On a slightly lighter note, Shelley also mentions Shane Copeland and Ali Alexander cooperating with the FBI, seeking immunity or reduced sentences.
That detail adds another layer of intrigue to this already complex narrative. It suggests that the wheels of justice are turning, that even those who seem untouchable may ultimately be held accountable for their actions.
It's a reminder that actions have consequences, even in the often murky world of politics.
And then, of course, there's that bombshell prediction about NATO's involvement responding to Russia's alleged role in the election fraud.
Now, that one definitely got my attention. It's a bold claim, one with massive geopolitical ramifications.
It speaks to a deep distrust of foreign interference and a desire for accountability on a global scale. But again, it's crucial to emphasize that this is based on Shelley's interpretation of the pendulum, not on confirmed evidence.
So we're left with a blend of tantalizing predictions, intriguing character analyses, and a call to spiritual action. It's a lot to unpack, and even more to ponder.
That's the beauty of it, isn't it? We've delved into the depths of these readings, and we've surfaced with insights, questions, and maybe even a sense of wonder.
It's a reminder that even in a world saturated with information, there are still mysteries to explore, alternative perspectives to consider, and maybe even a bit of magic to be found.
And sometimes those alternative perspectives challenge us to think differently about ourselves and the world around us. Take Shelley's focus on personal transformation and spiritual awakening. It's not just about predicting external events, it's about recognizing our role in shaping those events.
She seems to be saying that we're not just passive observers of political events, but active participants in a larger unfolding of consciousness.
Precisely. And this concept of collective awakening, while inspiring, also raises important questions about responsibility, inclusivity, and the power of individual actions to shape our collective future.
It encourages us to examine our own beliefs, to explore the interconnectedness of our inner and outer worlds, and to consider how we can contribute to a more just and harmonious society.
Ultimately, this deep dive isn't about finding definitive answers, but about igniting curiosity, expanding our perspectives, and empowering us to engage with the world in more mindful and meaningful ways.
It's about embracing the mystery, questioning our assumptions, and recognizing that even in the realm of politics, there's room for intuition, imagination, and alternative ways of knowing.
And who knows, maybe those alternative ways of knowing can lead us to a deeper understanding of ourselves, our world, and the forces that shape our collective destiny. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From specific predictions to this broader idea of spiritual warfare and collective awakening.
It's been quite the journey. You know what really strikes me is how Shelley manages to weave those two threads together. It's not just about what might happen out there in the world.
Right. It's also about how we respond internally, how we navigate these energies, and maybe even influence the outcome.
Exactly. She keeps emphasizing personal transformation, right? Aligning with the light and raising our vibrations.
It's a powerful message. It speaks to our innate desire to feel like we have some agency in all of this, that we're not just helpless bystanders.
It's also a bit tricky, isn't it? Because on one hand, it can be empowering to think that our thoughts and intentions can impact the world.
But on the other hand, it can also lead to a sort of spiritual bypassing where we focus on personal growth while ignoring systemic issues that need real-world solutions.
Right, so it's about finding that balance, isn't it? Cultivating inner peace and awareness while also engaging in meaningful action to create positive change.
Absolutely. And that's where Shelley's message gets really interesting because she's not just saying, meditate and everything will be fine.
No, she's actually calling for action, urging her viewers to confront the darkness head-on, to stand up for what they believe in.
It's like a spiritual call to arms, recognizing that this battle isn't just about individual enlightenment, but about creating a more just and harmonious world for everyone.
And that brings us back to those predictions, doesn't it? Because even though they're rooted in spiritual practices, they also have real-world implications.
Absolutely. And I think that's one of the key takeaways from this whole deep dive. These readings offer a unique perspective on current events. They invite us to consider possibilities that we might not have entertained otherwise.
Right, it's not about accepting everything as gospel, but about broadening our horizons and being open to different ways of understanding the world.
And I think that's a valuable exercise, regardless of your personal beliefs. Whether you're a seasoned tarot enthusiast or a skeptical observer, there's something to be gained from engaging with these ideas.
So as we wrap up this fascinating exploration into the world of tarot pendulums and political predictions, what final thoughts would you leave our listeners with?
Well, first I'd say don't underestimate the power of intuition and imagination. We often get so caught up in the rational, logical world that we forget to tap into those other ways of knowing.
And sometimes those intuitive insights can lead us to unexpected discoveries, new perspectives, and a deeper understanding of ourselves and the world around us.
Second, I'd encourage everyone to stay curious. Keep asking questions, keep exploring, and don't be afraid to challenge your own assumptions.
The world is full of mysteries and wonders. And sometimes the most fascinating discoveries come from venturing outside our comfort zones.
And finally, I'd say remember that we all have a role to play in shaping the future, whether it's through our thoughts, our actions, or simply our willingness to engage in meaningful dialogue.
We're all interconnected, and our choices matter. So let's choose wisely, let's choose compassion, and let's choose to create a world that reflects the best of humanity.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on.
Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. It's been a pleasure exploring these fascinating sources with you.
The pleasure was all mine.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for tuning in to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time for another adventure into the depths of knowledge.